The morning sun was just beginning to climb over the horizon, painting the small town with a soft golden light. The roadside diner sat quietly along the edge of the highway, its old neon sign flickering faintly. Inside, the smell of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon filled the air. The diner was small but cozy, with red vinyl booths and a long counter that had seen decades of customers. Regulars had their favorite spots, and everyone seemed to know each other by name. The woman who owned the diner moved with a quiet efficiency. She was in her late 30s, strong and composed, with an air of calm that made everyone around her feel safe. She wiped down the counter with practiced motions, poured coffee for the early risers, and greeted each customer with a warm smile. Her presence was steady, almost comforting, and it was clear she ran the place with pride and care. She had been opening the diner for years now, and most of the town saw her as just another hardworking business owner. They didn't know about her past, about the years she had spent in the Marines, the tough training and the discipline that shaped her. To them, she was simply a friendly face behind the counter, someone who served good food and listened to their stories. The morning was calm, the kind of quiet that made the small town feel safe. A few cars rolled by on the highway, and the occasional traveler stopped for a quick meal. Inside, the customers chatted softly, some reading newspapers, others talking about the local news. The woman moved from table to table, checking on her regulars, refilling coffee cups, and taking orders. She had a natural way of making people feel at ease, listening more than speaking and offering just the right words of encouragement. Outside, however, the calm was not as solid. A group of men had gathered near the edge of the highway, leaning against their cars and watching the diner. They were loud, rough, and carried an air of menace. They laughed too loudly, their voices carrying over the quiet morning. There was something about the way they moved, the way they looked at the diner, that made her pause for just a moment. Her instincts, honed over years of disciplined training, told her to pay attention. She took a deep breath and went back to her work, reminding herself that mornings like this were usually peaceful. She had faced difficult situations before, and she knew how to handle herself. Still, a small tension lingered in the back of her mind as the men continued to loiter, their eyes occasionally meeting hers through the diner windows. The regulars, oblivious to the undercurrent of unease, continued their morning routines. A man in his 50s read his newspaper at the corner booth, sipping coffee. Two women at a table near the window chatted quietly, sharing stories about their families. A trucker at the counter nibbled on toast, listening to the radio. Everyone felt the warmth of the diner, the safety of the routine, not realizing that a storm might be quietly approaching. She moved behind the counter, preparing plates of eggs and bacon for the breakfast orders. Her movements were precise, almost mechanical, but there was a grace to them, a confidence that came from years of discipline. She had learned to stay calm under pressure, to anticipate challenges, and to react without hesitation. Those skills had served her well in life, even outside of the Marines. As she placed a plate in front of a customer, the door to the diner swung open suddenly, letting in a gust of cold morning air. The group of men had entered, their presence immediately filling the small space with tension. They were loud, joking roughly among themselves and glancing around the diner as if they owned the place. Their energy was aggressive, and it made the regulars shift uneasily in their seats. She greeted them politely, keeping her tone even. Her eyes met theirs, calm and steady, and she didn't flinch. There was a quiet authority in the way she carried herself, a subtle signal that she was not someone to be taken lightly. The men, however, seemed to miss it. They laughed at their own jokes, ignoring her polite smile, and moved further into the diner. One of the men leaned against the counter, his voice loud and brash. He made a comment about her appearance, trying to provoke a reaction. She stayed composed, responding with professionalism, refusing to let his words affect her. The tension in the room grew, but she maintained control. Her training had taught her that keeping calm was the first step in handling any confrontation. The other customers watched nervously, unsure of what to do. Some pretended to be busy, others whispered to each other. The diner that had been so calm only moments ago now felt like a pressure cooker, and the woman behind the counter was the only anchor keeping it from boiling over. She continued to serve food, pour coffee, and take orders, all while keeping a careful eye on the group. The men started to get more aggressive, their voices rising, their jokes becoming more pointed. They didn't know her, didn't realize that she was more than just a diner owner. They were testing boundaries, pushing to see if she would react. She remained steady, measuring each movement, each word, waiting for the right moment to act if necessary. Her mind moved quickly, calculating distances, exits, and options. Every detail mattered. Where the men were standing, the layout of the diner, the positions of the customers. She was aware of the potential danger but did not show any fear. To the casual observer, she appeared calm and collected, but beneath the surface her instincts were on high alert. The tension continued to build as the group continued their rowdy behavior. One of them knocked over a chair by accident, laughing loudly, trying to draw attention. She simply picked up the chair and set it back, her calmness contrasting sharply with their chaotic energy. The customers noticed her poise and felt a sense of relief, knowing that someone in the room was capable of handling the situation. Despite the aggressive behavior of the men, she remained focused on her work. She served plates of food with a steady hand, poured coffee without hesitation, and kept the atmosphere as normal as possible for the regulars. She understood that panic could make a situation worse, and she was determined not to let fear take over. Outside, the morning light grew brighter, and the world seemed to go on as usual. But inside the diner, the calm was fragile, held together by the woman's presence and discipline. She moved through the space with quiet authority, showing no signs of the years of rigorous training that had shaped her. To the men, she was just another woman behind a counter, but soon they would learn that appearances could be deceiving. As the minutes passed, the group started to realize that their usual tactics of intimidation were not working. She did not react to their provocations, did not show fear, and did not allow them to control the space. Her calmness and confidence were unsettling, and they began to exchange uncertain glances. They were used to people reacting to their presence, but she remained a steady force in the room. The morning continued, and the tension lingered, a quiet storm waiting to break. The woman continued her routine, checking on customers, refilling coffee cups, and keeping the diner running smoothly. Every now and then her eyes flicked to the group, assessing, calculating, ready to act if necessary. She was a former Marine, trained to handle threats, and though no one could see it yet, her past would soon reveal itself in a way that would leave everyone stunned. For now, she stayed calm, professional, and in control. The diner remained a safe place, at least for the moment, and the regulars went about their morning unaware of the danger lurking in plain sight. She served breakfast with a steady hand and a quiet smile, waiting for the storm to make its move, ready to show that strength often comes in unexpected forms. The quiet roadside diner held its breath, unaware that the morning was about to change forever. The group of men moved further into the diner, their loud voices cutting through the gentle hum of morning conversation. They were clearly looking for trouble, laughing at their own crude jokes and throwing sideways glances at the woman behind the counter. She continued to work, keeping her movements steady and precise, refusing to show any sign of fear or irritation. One of the men leaned heavily on a booth near the window, smirking as he looked at the other customers. His laughter was sharp and harsh, and he made a passing comment about the diner, mocking the quiet nature of the place. She didn't respond verbally, but her eyes followed his every move. She assessed their behavior with a trained eye, noting body language, positions, and possible threats. Her calm demeanor was her first line of defense, and she maintained it without fail. The customers felt the tension immediately. Some looked away, pretending to read or check their phones, while others whispered to each other in low tones. No one spoke up, unsure how to confront the aggressive men without making the situation worse. They had never seen anything like this before. The way the diner seemed to remain a haven, even as a storm of trouble loomed inside. The man at the counter began to raise his voice, making crude remarks about the woman's looks and her ability to manage the diner. He laughed at his own words, expecting to provoke a reaction, but she remained still, pouring coffee and serving plates with calm efficiency. Her composure unnerved him, and for the first time, his smirk faltered. She was not what he expected. The other men started to notice the change. They had assumed that she would be intimidated, that her polite smile would hide fear, and that her small stature would make her easy to push around. They were wrong. She did not flinch. She did not step back. She maintained a quiet strength that they could not penetrate. One of the men decided to take it further. He stepped closer, leaning over the counter, his face inches from hers. He spoke loudly, trying to assert dominance to make her back down. Her response was measured but firm, a simple request for him to respect her space and the diner. Her tone was calm, yet there was an unmistakable edge to it, a warning that she was not to be trifled with. The man laughed, thinking he could intimidate her through aggression. He reached toward a coffee pot, pretending to move it, testing her boundaries. Her hand moved just slightly enough to block his reach without creating a scene. She kept her eyes on him, her posture steady, her mind calculating the situation. She knew that escalation could be dangerous, but she was ready if needed. The rest of the gang started to grow restless. They were used to people reacting to threats, to backing down or showing fear. The woman's calm resistance challenged them in a way they had not expected. Their laughter became more forced, their movements sharper. They circled the diner subtly, trying to gauge the reactions of the customers and the woman behind the counter. A trucker sitting at the counter finally spoke, attempting to diffuse the tension with a joke. The gang ignored him, focusing instead on the woman. They had assumed that any man in the diner would take action first, that someone would intervene. She allowed them to realize that they were dealing with someone who could handle herself, someone who was not afraid to defend what was hers. The situation escalated as one of the men accidentally bumped into a chair, sending it scraping across the floor. He laughed loudly, trying to assert control, but she calmly bent down, picked it up, and placed it back without a word. The customers watched in awe, recognizing the unspoken message. She would not allow chaos to disrupt her space. Her military training came to mind, not as a distant memory, but as a living guide in the moment. She had learned to read body language, anticipate actions, and maintain control under pressure. Her past was not something she flaunted, but it gave her a quiet confidence that radiated through her movements and posture. Every shift of weight, every calm glance, every precise action sent subtle signals to the aggressors that they were not in control. The men began to grow frustrated. They exchanged quick glances, silently communicating their confusion and irritation. They were not used to being met with this kind of resistance, especially from someone they assumed was weaker than them. Their aggression became more erratic, their movements less coordinated. She observed quietly, recognizing that panic and anger were clouding their judgment. One of the men decided to provoke a customer, leaning toward a man reading a newspaper. The woman intervened smoothly, stepping between them without raising her voice. She spoke firmly, asserting her authority, and the man backed off, surprised at her decisiveness. The regulars began to sense that she was the anchor in this storm, the person who held the diner together and protected them, even if they did not fully understand her capabilities. The group tried to regroup, whispering among themselves, planning their next move. They thought they could intimidate her by sheer numbers and aggression, but she remained unflinching. She had learned long ago that the key to handling threats was patience, observation, and control. She did not need to match their chaos with chaos. She simply needed to remain calm and ready. Her mind worked quickly, evaluating each man's strength, stance, and possible intentions. She noted the distance between them and the exit, the positions of customers who could be at risk, and the layout of the diner. Every detail mattered, and she kept all of it in mind without making it obvious. To the outside observer, she was simply running her diner, but underneath her mind was a strategic command center. The men, meanwhile, began to sense that their usual tactics were ineffective. Their laughter faltered and their confidence wavered. One of them muttered something under his breath, frustration evident in his voice. They had underestimated her completely, assuming she would respond with fear or submission. They did not realize that she was trained to handle situations exactly like this. The morning wore on, the tension inside the diner thickening like fog. The woman continued her routine, serving food, refilling drinks, and checking on customers. Her calmness created a bubble of safety within the diner, even as the aggressors tried to stir chaos. The customers began to regain a bit of composure, realizing that she was fully in control and that they were safe under her watch. The group tried one more time to assert themselves, making loud comments and bumping into tables. She remained composed, intercepting their actions smoothly, using minimal movement to maintain maximum effect. Her presence was commanding, and even the most aggressive member of the group could feel the shift in energy. She was no longer just a target. She was a force to be reckoned with. As the minutes stretched, the tension reached a breaking point. The men realized they could not intimidate her, could not disrupt the diner, and could not gain the respect they thought they deserved through aggression. They began to step back, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. She remained poised, watching every subtle change in their demeanor, ready to respond if needed. The customers finally exhaled quietly, sensing that the immediate danger had passed, though the tension lingered in the air. The diner returned to a semblance of normalcy, though everyone remained alert, aware of the potential for further trouble. The woman continued to serve with her usual warmth and professionalism, ensuring that the regulars felt safe and cared for. Through it all, she remained aware that the situation was far from over. The men were unpredictable, and their frustration could lead to further conflict. But she had shown them that she was not an easy target, that she had the strength, skill, and composure to handle whatever came next. Her presence had shifted the balance, and the aggressors were now cautious, forced to recognize that they were dealing with someone far more capable than they had imagined. The morning light continued to fill the diner, highlighting the red booths and the gleaming counter. The smell of coffee and breakfast lingered, comforting and familiar. The woman moved through the space with grace and confidence, her calm aura restoring a sense of safety. The customers watched in awe, slowly understanding that courage and strength often come in forms they would never expect, and that the woman behind the counter was more than she appeared. By the time the men stepped toward the door, the woman's eyes followed them, calm but watchful. She was ready for any sudden move, prepared for whatever might come next. Her training, experience, and instincts kept her alert and prepared, while her demeanor reassured the customers that they were in safe hands. The diner once again became a haven of normalcy, even as the echoes of tension lingered in the air, hinting at a storm that had not yet fully passed. The moment had arrived. The group of men, frustrated and humiliated, had pushed too far. One of them tried to grab her arm, thinking he could finally assert control. She reacted instantly, her body moving with precision and speed that shocked the aggressor. In a fluid motion, she twisted his wrist, bringing him down to the floor without causing serious injury. The room froze, the sound of the scuffle ringing through the diner. The other men stared in disbelief. They had assumed they could intimidate her with numbers, but their assumptions had crumbled. She was calm, composed, and more than capable of defending herself. Her movements were confident, controlled, and efficient, clear evidence of training and experience far beyond the ordinary. The customers watched, hearts pounding as the scene unfolded. One of the men lunged at her from behind, attempting a sneaky grab. She anticipated it, stepping aside with precise timing, using his momentum against him to send him crashing into a chair. The chair toppled over, creating a loud clatter that made several customers jump. Her eyes never left the men, her body coiled and ready for the next move. She was a force of nature in that small diner, and it became painfully clear to everyone present that they had underestimated her. The gang tried to regroup, shouting threats and insults, but their aggression was now tinged with fear. They were no longer in control. Each of their moves was met with a calculated response from her, each attempt to dominate thwarted with skill and calm efficiency. The diner, which had been tense and uneasy, became a stage for her decisive action, and every customer watched in awe and disbelief. She used her training to create space between herself and the aggressors. A chair, a counter, even the placement of tables all became tools in her hands. She moved quickly but with control, guiding the men away from the customers, ensuring no one else was harmed. Her eyes scanned the room constantly, taking in every detail, every possible threat, and every opportunity to neutralize the situation without unnecessary violence. One of the men tried to grab a knife from the counter, thinking he would escalate the situation. She reacted instantly, lunging forward to intercept him, disarming him in a smooth, practiced motion. The blade clattered to the floor. The sound was shocking, and the man froze, realizing the mistake he had made. Her stare locked onto his, unwavering, sending a clear message that there would be no second chances. The customers remained quiet, some holding their breath, others frozen in disbelief. No one had expected to witness such a display of skill in what had seemed like an ordinary diner. Yet here it was, a former Marine, calm and methodical, defending herself and those around her with skill and courage. The reality of her abilities began to sink in for everyone, including the aggressors. The men, now realizing the severity of the situation, tried to retreat. but their frustration and anger pushed them to make one last desperate attempt. One of them swung at her, but she sidestepped with lightning speed, using his momentum to guide him into the wall. The thud echoed, and he crumpled to the floor, groaning in pain. Her movements were precise, controlled, and without panic. Every action was deliberate, each choice calculated to protect herself and the others. She stepped back, giving them room to breathe, but her stance remained defensive. Her eyes never left the group, watching for any sudden movement, any potential threat. The balance of power had shifted entirely, and the aggressors could feel it. Fear had replaced arrogance. They had walked into a situation they could not control, and the consequences of their actions were now clear. Her voice, calm but firm, cut through the chaos. She warned them to leave and never return, making it clear that any further aggression would not be tolerated. The tone was measured, but the authority in it left no room for argument. One by one, the men scrambled to their feet, retreating toward the door, glancing nervously at her and at each other. Humiliation and fear were evident on their faces as they stumbled out into the morning light. The diner was quiet again, but the air was thick with tension. Customers slowly exhaled, their hands trembling slightly, realizing how close danger had come. The woman moved back behind the counter, wiping her hands and returning to her work as if nothing had happened, though her eyes remained alert, scanning for any lingering threat. She offered soft smiles and comforting words to the customers, reassuring them that they were safe now. The trucker at the counter finally spoke, his voice shaky but grateful. He thanked her, unable to hide his awe at what had just transpired. Other customers echoed his sentiments, some expressing disbelief that such courage and skill could exist in such an ordinary setting. She simply nodded, acknowledging their gratitude without dwelling on the incident. She knew the focus had to remain on keeping the diner a safe place. Her mind, however, remained active, replaying the events, analyzing the aggressor's behavior, and considering the potential consequences. She had acted with restraint, using the minimum force necessary to neutralize the threat. Her training had guided her, but her judgment ensured that no one was seriously harmed. She was aware that law enforcement would need to be informed, and she made a mental note to call the authorities once the immediate danger had passed. As the customers returned to their meals, some lingering in quiet awe, she continued her work with steady hands and a calm demeanor. Coffee was refilled, plates were cleared, and the comforting smells of breakfast returned to dominate the space. The diner once again felt like a safe haven, though everyone present carried the memory of what had just occurred. The story of the morning would linger in their minds, a testament to strength, courage, and the hidden depths of ordinary people. Outside, the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the parking lot. The group of men had left, but their departure left a trail of tension that would not soon be forgotten. They had walked into a situation expecting control and dominance, only to be met with calm authority, skill, and courage. Their lesson had been harsh but clear. Never underestimate someone based on appearances. Inside, the woman continued to move through the diner with grace and efficiency, her presence once again creating a sense of normalcy. She checked on the customers, offered gentle reassurances, and ensured that everyone felt safe and cared for. Her ability to balance calm authority with kindness left a lasting impression on those who had witnessed the events. The incident had changed the morning, shifting it from a routine breakfast to a moment of intense action and courage. The woman's past as a Marine had been revealed not through words but through her actions, decisive, disciplined, and unyielding. Her skill, confidence, and courage had protected the people around her and restored order to a place that had almost descended into chaos. She moved to the counter and began preparing orders as if nothing had happened. But the tension in the room had lifted slightly. Customers whispered among themselves, sharing their amazement and slowly resuming their meals. The woman's calm, controlled demeanor had reassured them, showing that even in the face of danger there could be strength, courage, and protection. Though the immediate threat had passed, she remained vigilant. Her eyes swept the diner constantly, checking for any signs of lingering danger. Her military instincts ensured that she was prepared for anything, and her presence continued to provide safety for the customers. The incident had demonstrated her capability, but it also reinforced the lesson that appearances could be deceiving and that true strength often lay hidden beneath a calm exterior. As the morning continued, the diner returned to its familiar rhythm. Coffee brewed, Plates clattered and soft conversations resumed. Yet the memory of the confrontation lingered in the minds of those who had witnessed it. They had seen courage and skill in action, and they would not forget it. The woman behind the counter had shown that bravery could manifest in ordinary places, and that strength could take forms that were often unexpected. With every movement, every word, and every glance, she ensured that the diner remained a safe haven. Her presence was both protective and reassuring, a reminder that courage was not always loud or aggressive, but sometimes quiet, controlled, and unwavering. The morning had been a test, and she had passed with skill, ensuring the safety and well-being of everyone within her care. The customers gradually left, expressing gratitude and respect, their admiration for the woman evident in their words and gestures. She nodded politely, her focus never wavering from her work and the safety of her diner. Outside, the sun shone brightly, the threat gone and a sense of normalcy returning. But the memory of the morning would remain, a testament to courage, skill, and the unassuming strength of someone who had once been trained to face danger, and now used that training to protect her little corner of the world. The sun was higher now, casting warm light across the diner and the quiet parking lot outside. The adrenaline from the confrontation still lingered in the air, but the immediate danger had passed. The woman moved behind the counter, wiping her hands on a towel and taking a deep breath. She had kept the situation under control, protected the customers, and ensured that no one was seriously hurt. Now it was time to reflect and manage the aftermath. The customers, once tense and fearful, began to relax slowly. Some stayed seated, quietly finishing their meals, while others approached the counter to express their gratitude. They spoke in hushed tones, unsure how to fully capture the mix of awe and relief they felt. The woman listened politely, offering simple nods and soft words, keeping the atmosphere calm and reassuring. Her priority was always the safety and comfort of the people around her. A man in a corner booth, a regular who had witnessed the entire incident, looked at her with wide eyes. He asked how she had handled it so well, unable to hide his amazement. She smiled gently, shrugging as if it were nothing special. In her mind, she knew it was her training, her discipline, and her years of experience that had allowed her to respond with calm and efficiency. To the world, she appeared ordinary, but her past as a Marine had prepared her for moments exactly like this. She began making calls, notifying the local authorities about the incident. She recounted what had happened clearly and concisely, ensuring the police had accurate information. She knew it was important to handle this part responsibly, so the situation would not escalate further, and the aggressors could be held accountable. The professionalism she had displayed during the confrontation carried over to these calls, demonstrating her calm and thorough approach. Outside the diner, a few neighbors had gathered, curious about the commotion. The woman stepped out briefly to assure them that everyone was safe. She spoke with a steady voice, explaining that the situation had been handled and that the aggressors were gone. Her calm and confident demeanor reassured the small crowd, many of whom had initially feared the worst. Back inside, the customers slowly returned to their routines. Some tried to laugh nervously, breaking the tension, while others simply sipped coffee in quiet reflection. The atmosphere was warmer now, filled with a sense of relief and appreciation for the woman who had protected them. Her ability to act decisively yet with restraint had left a lasting impression, and it became clear that she was not just a diner owner, but a protector, a quiet force of strength. She moved through the diner, checking on tables, clearing dishes, and ensuring that everyone felt safe. Her presence was calming, and the customers began to regain their sense of normalcy. They whispered to one another about her bravery, slowly piecing together the extraordinary reality of what had just unfolded. To them, she had become more than just a familiar face behind the counter. She was a symbol of courage and resilience. The woman reflected on the morning, thinking about the contrast between her life now and her years in the Marines. She had left that world behind to create a peaceful life, running a diner, meeting, and helping people in her own way. Yet the discipline, awareness, and skills she had gained could never be forgotten, and today they had proven invaluable. She understood that strength was not always loud or visible. Sometimes it was quiet, steady, and ready to act when necessary. She spoke softly to a young woman who had been particularly scared during the incident. She reassured her that it was okay to feel frightened, and that bravery did not mean never being afraid. She explained that courage was about facing challenges, protecting oneself and others and maintaining composure even when danger arose. The young woman listened intently, inspired by the calm authority and kindness in her words. The diner gradually returned to its usual rhythm. Coffee pots hissed, plates clattered, and conversations resumed, now tinged with a shared experience that would be remembered for a long time. The woman continued her work, moving with efficiency and care but with a heightened sense of awareness. She knew that the world could present unexpected challenges at any moment, and she was ready for them. Later in the day, the police arrived to speak with her in more detail. She explained everything that had happened, from the initial confrontation to how she had defended herself and the customers. Her statements were precise, clear, and calm, reflecting the same professionalism she had displayed throughout the morning. The officers were impressed not only by the incident itself, but by the woman's ability to remain composed and responsible under pressure. The local community began to take notice of her bravery. Neighbors, friends, and regular customers expressed admiration and respect, recognizing that she had done something extraordinary without seeking recognition or praise. They understood that her courage had protected lives and ensured the safety of her diner, and they were grateful for her unwavering commitment. In the quiet moments after the commotion, the woman took a few minutes to herself. She reflected on her life, the choices she had made, and the values she held dear. She thought about the people she had protected today and the responsibility she carried as someone capable of defending others. Her past as a Marine had shaped her, but it was her character, compassion, and discipline that had guided her actions in this moment. She prepared herself for the rest of the day, serving meals with care and maintaining a sense of calm in the diner. The customers who had witnessed the events returned to their routines, now filled with admiration and respect. The woman continued to work with her usual focus and dedication, knowing that courage was not just about dramatic actions but also about consistency, presence, and the ability to protect and guide others. As the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, the diner felt whole again, restored to a sense of safety and community. The incident had left a mark, but it also highlighted the strength of someone who lived with discipline, integrity, and courage. The woman behind the counter was no longer just a familiar face. She was a symbol of resilience, a reminder that ordinary places could hold extraordinary people. By the end of the day, the diner had returned to a calm and welcoming environment. The customers who had stayed through the morning's events expressed their gratitude once more, leaving with stories to share and a renewed appreciation for the quiet strength they had witnessed. The woman continued to serve with dedication, embodying the same values that had guided her throughout her life. As evening approached, she closed the diner for the day, locking the doors and taking a moment to reflect on what had transpired. The events of the morning would not be forgotten, but she carried them with a sense of pride and humility. She had faced danger, protected those around her, and maintained her composure, demonstrating that true courage often comes quietly, without fanfare. She walked outside, taking in the quiet streets and the fading light of the day. The world was still, the danger gone, and the community safe. Her thoughts lingered on the lessons learned, the gratitude expressed, and the power of preparedness, calm, and discipline. The morning had been a test, and she had passed, ensuring that her diner remained a haven and that the people within it were protected. As night fell, she reflected on the duality of her life, the ordinary and the extraordinary, the calm routine and the sudden challenge. Her past had prepared her for moments like this, but it was her character and compassion that had guided her actions. She understood that true strength was measured not only by physical skill, but also by courage, presence, and the willingness to act when needed. The diner lights flickered softly, casting a warm glow inside. The woman took a final look around, ensuring everything was in order. The tables were clean, the counters wiped down, and the sense of calm restored. She knew that tomorrow would bring another day of routine, yet she remained prepared for whatever challenges might arise. The morning's events had shown that courage could emerge in unexpected places, that strength could exist behind a simple smile, and that ordinary people could accomplish extraordinary feats when called upon. With a deep breath, she locked the doors and walked home, carrying with her a sense of accomplishment, pride, and readiness. The day had been difficult, tense, and demanding, but she had faced it with composure and strength. Her community was safe, her diner remained a sanctuary, and she had proven once again that bravery was not always loud or visible but could shine through in the most unexpected ways.